issue is justification. Now, here's the bottom line. God is holy, righteous, and good, and we are sinners. We're unholy, unrighteous, and we do evil. We sin by thought, word, deed, motive. We have sins of omission. We don't do what we're supposed to. Sins of commission. We do what we're not supposed to. God is perfect. We are imperfect. Heaven is perfect. We are imperfect. How can we stand before God at the end, who is our just, righteous, holy, and good judge, and have Him declare us anything but guilty and send us anywhere but hell? That's the question. Likewise, were you absolutely guilty of something and beyond a reasonable doubt the evidence was incontrovertible, how could you stand before a just judge and have that judge declare you anything but guilty? That's the question. And the answer that the Bible gives is the doctrine of justification. And that is that we are saved by the works of Jesus, not our own works. That we don't do anything to save ourselves. We rather receive the gift that Jesus gives, the gift of salvation through grace. And again, this is debated because, I'll quote the two verses, Romans 3:28 says, one is justified, there's our doctrine. Justification appears about 222 times in the New Testament. Paul says, Romans 3:28, one is justified by faith, trusting in Jesus, apart from works of the law. Religion, morality, spirituality, being a good person, trying really hard, standing before God saying, here's my resume, I lived a good life, I hope it's good enough. Because God sees two categories of people, imperfect and perfect. He doesn't grade on a curve. In the perfect category is one person named Jesus. In the imperfect category is everyone else, including you and I. We can't declare before God, here's what I've done. I think I've done good enough. God says, have you been perfect? No, that's the standard. James 2, however, for example, verse 24, which the question raises the issue of, seems to contradict this. It says, quote, a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. Catholics tended to emphasize James chapter 2. Protestants tended to emphasize Romans chapter 3. Is it solely by grace alone, through faith alone, in Jesus Christ alone, that we receive justification, which is standing before God, though guilty, and being declared justified, just, holy and righteous in His sight? Is it solely a gift from Jesus, or is it Jesus plus me and the good things that I do to add to my righteousness? That's the question. And the answer is, it's all of Jesus. Salvation is a gift that leads to good works. This will be the sum of my argument. But I'll explain it to you in this way. 2 Corinthians 5:21 tells us of how we could stand before God, have the just God of the universe declare us sinners to be justified through Jesus. It says this, God made Him, that is Jesus, who knew no sin. He's perfect and without sin, thought, word, deed, omission, commission, motive, all of it pure. God made Him who knew no sin to become sin. So my sin, past, present, and future, goes on Jesus. God made Him who had no sin to become sin, so that in Him I might become the righteousness of God. That's 2 Corinthians 5:21. Martin Luther, the great Protestant reformer, said that the church rises or falls with the doctrine of justification. John Calvin says, rightly, it is the principle of the whole doctrine of salvation. Martin Luther called this the great exchange. My sin goes on Jesus, and Jesus' righteousness is given to me. So He takes away my sin, and He gives me His righteousness. Now I'm reconciled to God, declared holy, righteous, and just in His sight, and Jesus dies in my place for my sins, suffering the death that I deserve. To receive the forgiveness of sin and the righteousness of Jesus Christ, I receive it as a gift. It's all of God's grace, none of my works, and I receive it by faith, trusting in the person and the work of Jesus without anything that I add to His finished work.